Hi, I'm going to talk about biology and its fields of action. This science studies life from different standpoints, from the structure of atoms and molecules to the biology of the evolutionary development of populations. The branches of biology are very varied, such as anatomy, anthropology, botany, embryology, biomedicine, biochemistry, cytology, genetics, histology, immunology, virology, and zoology. Biology also has allowed us to know the composition of the material that passes the genetic information from one living thing to another. This knowledge supported the theory that life has a common ancestor. This evolution started with the prevalence of the archaea, then the bacteria, and later the eukarya. The other topic is how did life originated in the planet for centuries. It was believed that a supreme being created life and it was generated spontaneously. Some others consider that the electrical activity in the atmosphere originated life. Others suggest that the creation of life occurred in the volcanoes, some others in the bottom of the ocean, and others that the living things arrived transported by meteorites or comets. Everything that has previously happened have rise to a system based on DNA and RNA. The DNA was compacted in such a way that it only opens the areas that must be transcribed, translated, and replicated, and keeps hiding those that will not be required. We already know that the environment can also modify this reading and the modification that occur in the DNA molecule without altering its sequence.
Now I'm going to talk about the characteristics of living things. They are summarized in 8 points, and the first one will be organization. And as the word says, is to begin organized, and they are organized in levels which the superiors give substance to the superiors. The second one will be the genetic code, and it's a sequence of introduced bases that combines to produce word in a language that will be understandable to all the living things, and it will be considered as a universal language. And the facts show that all living things have a common ancestral origin. The third one will be the response to stimuli. Each species has developed mechanisms or sensory organ to capture, integrate, and respond to what happened in its environment and outside it. The fourth one will be homeostasis, and it refers to the set of self-regulation phenomena that led us of conservation and steadiness in the composition of properties for the internal environment of an organism that allow it have to have a free life. And the number five will be metabolisms, and the living things use energy to maintain homeostasis. And they must take components from the external environment, transform them, and use them for their benefit. And metabolisms involves the destruction of molecules that will be catabolism and the formation of new molecules that will be anabolism. Catabolic processes have involved the releasing of energy contained in the chemical bonds by destroying them. The sixth one will be growth, and it's about bacteria must double their volume in order to reproduce. Therefore, they must grow even in their small dimension. The seventh one will be the reproduction, and the reproduction can be asexual, sexual, or parasexual. The sexual reproduction, its main characteristic is the fact that the descendant is genetically identical to its procedure. The sexual reproduction is this type of reproduction involves the fertilization of two different cells, the sperm and the egg. And the parasexual reproduction is about through the exchange to DNA that is carried out by conjunction, transduction, and transformation. And the number eight will be adaptation, ability, and evolution. And this is about adapt or die. Adapt to the change, not necessarily the strongest individual, but the best adapt. Individuals change and inherit these modifications to their descendants, and this is the meaning of evolutions. Also, I'm going to talk about the differences between prokaryotic and eukaryotic cell. The prokaryotic cell comprises archaea and bacteria, and the eukaryotic cell include animals, plants, fungi, and protozoa. And the main difference between eukaryotic and prokaryotic cell is that eukaryotic have an endomembrane system. The endomembrane system comprises the internal membranes that membranes organelles, including the cells. The members organelle bestow the eukaryotic cell the advantage of organizing and making more efficient the use of cell resources. This fact implies the eukaryotic cells could specialize and constitute larger multicellular organisms. This difference allows us to explain and understand why prokaryotes are always unicellular, and it is because to survive, each cell is obtained to do everything that it needs. And prokaryotic cells are simpler than eukaryotic, but its no way should be underestimated since they have been successful survivals on the planet despite time and the extinctions.
Hi, I'm going to talk about the history of the microscope, the cell, and the cell theory. First, I'm going to talk about the history of the microscope. The invention of the oldest magnifying lens took place in the Assyrian Empire, used magnifying glasses. So the question is, who invented the microscope? Well, we don't have an answer, but Zacharias Janssen, Galileo Galilei, and Cornelius Drebbel were the inventors. The microscope was invented at the end of the 16th century and the beginning of the 17th century, and the first person who named this invention as the microscope was Giovanni Fibber. Zacharias Janssen, who is the most likely inventor, had the idea of combining two lenses inserted at the end of a tube and realized that combining the lenses in this way he achieved greater magnification ranges than with one glass. It is very probable that Janssen did not foresee this experiment and invention for the science proposed. Was Robert Hooke, who linked the history of the microscope with that of the cell. We owe to Hooke, among other things, the concept of a cell, as well as the lighting, achieved with the light of a candle that make it possible to observe the examples. In modern microscope, illumination is performed by a light bulb and condenser. The microscope he used allowed him to reach magnification of up to 15 times. Years later, Anton Van developed a new technique to manufacture lenses that allow him to observe samples with magnification up to 200 times. Since then, many innovations have allowed microscopes to evolve the modern instrument to which now we have access. Now we're going to talk about the history of the cell. The official story begins with Robert Hooke, who published the first observation he made with the microscope he created. Hooke observed the bark of the cork oak and noticed that its tissue was made up of small pieces which repeated themselves like the cells of a honeycomb. Meanwhile, Matthias Schleiden proposed what later became the first cell theory. The cell is the elemental unit of plants and animals, and it is the essential basis of life processes. This observation was established as valid for all forms of life. The 19th century was abundant in cellular discoveries. Robert Brown described the nucleus. Johannes Evangelist Perkin introduced the term protoplasm. That is, he was the first to describe the cellular cytoplasm. Meanwhile, Rudolf A. identified the mitochondria, and Rudolf Virchow proposed that all cells come from pre-existing cells. This assertion became the second postulate of the cell theory. The work of Louis Pasteur on the metabolism of yeast and asepsis cleared the way to the progress of research. August Weismann discovered that both current and ancestral cells are similar in structure and composition. Now, to finish, we're going to talk about the cell theory. There are four cell theories. The first one is that the cell is the morphological and structural unit of all living things. In other words, all living things are made up of cells and the products these cells generate. The second one is that every cell comes from a pre-existing one. This postulate debunks the theory of spontaneous generation. The third one is that the cell is the physiological unit of life. All vital functions take place within the cells, and only one is enough to generate life. And the fourth one is that the cell contains the hereditary information for the control of its development, growth, reproduction, and to transmit that information to the next generation.
So I'm going to talk to you about different forms of cell transport. Passive transport is the movement of ions and other atomic or molecular substances across the cell membrane without need of energy input. Unlike active transport, it doesn't require an input of cellular energy. Diffusion is the passive movement of particles. It can be of atoms, ions, or molecules from a region from higher concentration to regions of lower concentration. Then we have facilitated diffusion, which is the process of passive transport of molecules or ions across a biological membrane. Then we have endocytosis and exocytosis. Endocytosis is the process of capturing a substance or particle from outside the cell and bringing it into the cell. And exocytosis is the process in which a cell transports products through the cytoplasm to the plasma membrane. Finally, I'm going to tell you the levels of cellular organization, which start from an atom to a molecule, then to an organelle, then to a cell, then to tissue, organ system, and finally to the organism.
Hi, I'm going to talk to you about the main systems of the human body. The human body has 12 main systems, which are the circulatory system, lymphatic, digestive, endocrine, integumentary, muscular, nervous, reproductive, respiratory, skeletal, urinary, and immune. Each of these systems has its own function that helps the body regulate its health. Each of these systems also have a group of organ and tissue that helps the system complete its own function. I'm also going to talk to you about homeostasis. Homeostasis refers to when all the vital mechanisms have one objective in common, which is to regulate an internal environment. One example of this is when the body regulates its own temperature. The homeostasis involves a variable, a sensor or receiver, the integrator, the set point, and an effector. The response of the circuit can be stopped once it reaches the set point, which is called a negative feedback, and most of the functions of our body are caused of a negative feedback, or it can increase the answer, which is called a positive feedback.
Hi, my name is Vanessa and now I'm going to talk about health. First of all, what is health? Health is the social, mental, and physical state of a well-being in which the disease and the infirmity are absent. The Greeks professed a culture of care of the body and mind, which is reflected in the phrase healthy mind in a healthy body. Then people understood that the disease does not have a magical explanation. It doesn't have to do with an evil position or with a divine punishment. Illness has a causes of the disturbances, lifestyles, of the dynamic of the physical body. It is affected by the industrialization, automation, and acceleration of the pace of life, which is obviously produced by the human. Adolescence health. What is adolescence? Adolescence is the transition between the childhood and adulthood. The adolescent is no longer a child, so he has different needs. Now he likes things he didn't before. He's attracted to people and a lot of things. In one hand, the adolescent needs to play and needs the affection of his parents, but on the other hand, he wants to look and feel mature. The adolescent sees himself in the middle of many changes that affect him in a significant way. These changes are divided in three parts. First, physical changes. Second, psychological changes. And third, social changes. Physical changes is when the adolescent is passing through puberty. These are the hormonal ones. Psychological changes. Now the adolescent starts things differently. Now he likes things he didn't like before. And social changes. The adolescent starts to adopt some values and develop its identity. Most of it is defined by the group he becomes to. Healthy lifestyle. Healthy lifestyles help to avoid physical illness or to resist in a better way the physical and emotional suffering. Okay, so now I'm going to tell you seven habits that will help you with your healthy lifestyles. 1. Sleep between 7 and 8 hours a day. 2. Have a breakfast every day. 3. Perform 3 miles a day. 4. Maintain body with an unacceptable body weight. 5. Practice an activity regularly. 6. Do not consume or moderate the consumption of alcohol. 7. No smoking. Thank you.